Welcome to Directionally Correct, a People Links podcast with Cole and Scott. Today's guest, Stacia Garr, co-founder and principal analyst at RedThread Research.
Thanks to our sponsors, Orgnostic. Fast track the insights behind your people data using Orgnostic by connecting all your HR data in one people analytics platform. Quickly uncover the insights you need to measure the success of your people initiatives. Orgnostic is the most innovative people analytics, generative AI, data orchestration, and employee listening tool on the market. To learn more, book a demo at orgnostic.com/directionallycorrect. So we got a Christmas tree. We splurge on gifts and stuff, but not crazy. I don't know. Are you a Christmas music fan?
Music?
Yeah.
Not so much. I've never put up a tree myself. It'd be kind of weird for like a dude to do it, but
I saw this guy on LinkedIn. He posted about Whamageddon. Have you heard of this?
Whamageddon? No.
Yeah. So like one of those Christmas songs that's just like super obnoxious that they play over and over again if you go to like a department store. It's by the band Wham. And the goal is to make it through the month of December without hearing that song. And so it's like a challenge to yourself. Like, can you make it without hearing the Wham song?
No. You're talking about Last Christmas by Wham?
Yeah.
That's a good one, man. That's a classic. Why would you want to deny yourself?
I don't know. I guess if you hear it over and over again.
That and what Paul McCartney's We're Having a Wonderful Christmas Time. Those are classics.
When I think like, what is it? Mariah Carey has that one that's really popular.
Yeah, we could do without that if Scott had his way.
No Mariah Carey December.
No Carey Christmas.
No Carey Christmas. There's got to be a catchy name there to be had.
What do you want for Christmas? You getting anything? Fucking lump of coal and shit.
I think, yeah, I've not heard that one before. But I think I'm gonna get a pullover. I think that's
quarter zip pullover.
Pullover.
That's the plan.
That's Cole's Christmas this year. What about you?
I have no idea. I buy whatever the hell. The older you get, you buy whatever the hell you want throughout the year because people mess it up. They start buying you gifts, and you're like, "Oh, great! The quarter zip that I didn't want." Yeah. Awesome.
Well, do you guys exchange gifts?
Yeah, and it's kind of devolved into like it's super weird. So we will exchange like gifts of little to no value. Mm-hmm. Like, here's this thing from the dollar store, or here's something I got in the mail that I thought you would find interesting.
So it's like a white elephant, but it's like
kind of, but there might be like 50 gifts. So you get to open up a bunch of shit that it's like, okay, cool. Like, oh, you got a candy bar. That's super cool.
How's it going, Stacia?
Good. How are y'all?
Good. We're just talking about Christmas gifts. What are you getting for Christmas?
Christmas or Hanukkah?
Or Hanukkah, yeah. What are you getting for Hanukkah this year?
What are you getting me for Hanukkah?
What am I getting you? I'm getting you some bunch of great insights. That's what I'm getting.
Oh man, that's my favorite. That's my favorite.
No, just what you're going for this Hanukkah and Christmas. How about you, Cole? What are you getting for Christmas?
We were just talking about, I think I'm getting a quarter zip pullover. That's my big gift this year. So, and when you were joining, Scott was talking about how he gets like 1 million little gifts, not really anything big.
Yeah, our family doesn't go big. We don't like one extravagant gift. It's lots of little things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I think we're gonna go. We might go big this year. I've been looking for a pony for my kids. Thankfully, they won't listen to this podcast, so they don't know. And I think we might have found one, so I might be getting my kids a pony for Christmas.
Like a real alive pony?
Like a real alive pony, yeah.
Oh, wow. And what you are an equestrian, aren't you? So I guess that's not that random. It would be much more random if I was buying my kids a pony, but I guess it wouldn't be for you.
Yeah, it's not random. They are expecting a pony at some point. The question is when.
So do you own horses?
And yes, I recognize all the privilege that goes into that statement that my children are expecting a pony.
Yeah, no kidding.
You got a high cost lifestyle currently. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. No, it's a little rough around here right now. Anyway.
Do you have like horses and stables and stuff? Like what does that entail?
Yeah, I have a horse. She's boarded at a stable 20 minutes away. Yeah, and so she hangs out in a pasture. She's like totally cool if I never show up and pretends to be happy when I do. So it's a good relationship.
Is it a riding horse?
Yeah, I've had her for 19 years.
Oh, okay, getting up there.
Yeah, so she's my first child.
How old do horses live?
Like an old horse is 30. So
okay.
I've probably got another 10 years with good luck with her. So yeah.
I was thinking they were like dogs. I was like, oh man, it must be getting kind of old. But no, it's like middle aged.
Yeah, she's like middle aged. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anytime I have like interesting guests on here, I realize like how ignorant I am about so many things. Like, I know nothing about anything, but well,
how many hands is this horse? Yeah,
good. There you go. She's 14-1. So
14-1. That's right where I thought. That's right what I thought. Does she have a bit?
I do often ride her.
Yeah, we're like reaching the limits of my horse knowledge now, right? Do you ever shoe her?
I do not shoe her. She is barefoot. So, but she's a registered quarter horse, and she is got a star and a snip on her nose. So now we're getting beyond.
Wait, what's that?
What's
what is this?
Yeah.
It's like the markings, like the little white markings on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like a beauty mark, sort of?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Helps you understand, tell which horse is yours.
Oh.
So.
See, and I'd heard the term 14 hands, but it was when I was buying wine. It was like a brand called 14 Hands. And it has a horse on the front of it, but I had no idea that was a horse-related term.
So a hand is how you measure a horse. It's 4 inches. Like if you think about not probably my hand, but maybe your hand, this way. And so when, before they had kind of proper measurement, they would use hands to determine one hand on top of the other, up to the horse's withers, which is where its neck enters its body, how tall a horse was. And so 14
makes good sense, right?
Makes good sense, right? But 14 hands is remarkable because technically that is the difference between a pony and a horse from a size perspective. There's other things that go into that, like breed, etc. I won't bore you. I've ridden horses since I was 5, so as my children say, they're like, "Mama, you know everything." I'm like, I don't, but I know a lot. But that is the difference in size, and so that might be why the wine was 14 hands, because it was like denoting this like moment of transition with the horse.
Interesting. Well, I love it. There's an analytics podcast, and I think now we've officially covered every unit of analysis. We've now got the hand. We've covered stones before. I remember we covered that once a few weeks ago. So,
with horses, you're also talking like furlongs.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, for racing. Yeah.
You know what a furlong is. I've been to a lot of horse races. So, yeah. And the 7 furlong race,
away,
that's
Cole?
a good race. What?
I said betting your money away.
Yeah, pissing it away like I'm known to do.
Go into like the show ring at the horse track is like the best thing ever. Like you just divine some sort of insight into who's going to win by essential subjective assessment there. Like,
looking at him.
Oh, your name is like Smokey Joe. I like the cut of your jib. Yes. Yeah. $2.
So my horse's name is actually Smokin' Haley.
Oh, there you go.
So it's anything with smoking. It's got to be good.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
my mom and my grandmother always bet on gray horses. They think they're faster. I'm like, I'm pretty sure color doesn't have anything to do with it.
No, no,
I don't
no.
know.
Color
Anyway,
is
well,
subjective, like
say
all situation.
it was good. Got to see you for the first time in person at PsyOp this year, and I think that was your first PsyOp. What was that like for you?
I was my first psyop. It was interesting, it's I was reflecting on a post from somebody in our network who was talking about how people analytics people are often introverted and kind of more comfortable with numbers, and I often don't feel that way when I go to conferences because at this point I've been in the space for close to 20 years and I know a lot of people and blah blah blah. But I went to PsyOp and I felt introverted. I didn't know nearly. I mean, I knew plenty of people and had people I wanted to meet, but it was a good reminder of like what a lot of other people feel like going to conferences because you go and you're like, oh, there's a lot of people who know each other, and I know very few of you, which was a good experience. It was also a good experience just to kind of see the more academic perspective on the side of the work that we do, um, and and I think also there one of the cool things about what I get to do is I get to take ideas from all sorts of different places, and so kind of just thinking about what are the ideas that are there and how are people thinking about our space, and then how do we make that more actionable and something that people who are actual practitioners can use in the workplace is it's always good to be exposed to good new ideas. So that was cool.
Were you presenting, or are you just like trying to get some knowledge, side stream knowledge?
I was presenting. They actually let a non-IO on the stage, and I was in a
They're
session
known
that
to do
was
that from time to time.
on occasion. They're like, "We're going to let the riffraff in." Okay. uh, and so I went on. I was on with uh, some other IOs and was really talking about like what is it like to use data, and some of the tensions that come with using data in the workplace and making sure that people are using it appropriately, but then also recognizing the practical reality of you don't have some of the things that you have within a lab to actually show what's happening, and sometimes you have to make trade-offs with different things. So I was talking about that. There was plenty of opportunity for questions, which were,
Oh
were
yeah.
interesting. But yeah, no. But I had the chance to bring a non-IO perspective to data in the workplace, which was
I
cool.
think that's one of like the biggest misconceptions, or stark realities of working with data in the workplace. That it's definitely not like the research studies you get into, and there's always these sort of ancillary problems of privacy or just delivery or what have you that people don't necessarily
Yeah.
talk about. They only talk about the end results and their the outcomes, as it were.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
and
and I think also just the pressure, right? Like there are different pressures when you're doing the work in the workplace, and what
How
sometimes you can
so?
have the
How
best
so?
because you can have the best design study or you can have the best hypotheses,
Oh
but
yeah.
if ultimately no one's going to do anything with that information, even if you prove it, then should you do it at all?
yeah,
Probably not,
Yeah, there's
honestly.
both ends. Like you could have a randomized study in a lab, but you can't randomize employees in an org.
Yeah,
And what are you going to do with those outcomes? Are people actually going to use them? Or are they going to just, I think I know better. It's not what I
yeah,
wanted anyway. Yeah.
yeah. So I think you really got to think about what are you going to do with the results before you design your study, um, because if the answer is no one cares, then shouldn't be
No
doing
one
it.
yeah.
cares.
No
Yeah.
one cares.
Well, and I actually attended the session that you were at, and one of the things I thought was really intriguing, and I'd love to get your perspective working at RedThread on this, is the pressure for jazzing things up for marketing purposes. Right? Like you want to
Mm-hmm.
have the most impact. Like you guys do some fantastic research and market studies on the whole people analytics spectrum, and I'm sure you've got stuff coming out about like AI and I mean
Yeah.
the whole gamut. Like I know you've done learning technologies and stuff like that too. But like, can you talk about that at all? Like the pressures between doing really really good and thorough research on what's going on in the market and then what you have to do on the back end to make sure it's not irrelevant.
Yeah, so I think it's not dissimilar from an academic process, at least for us, in terms of going out there and making sure you understand what other people are saying or have said before, and having a pretty strong hypotheses about what one, what people care about, and two, what you should be testing and why. What we do a lot of is looking for spaces where there's a lot of noise, particularly a lot of marketing noise from vendors, that makes it complicated for buyers to know what's happening. So, you mentioned AI. AI is prime for that because there's a lot of people saying a lot of stuff, and it's hard to know what's real and what's not. Same with skills, which is another topic we've spent a lot of time on. Hard to know what's real and what's not. And so we go out and we say, okay, what's everyone saying? And then we try to match that against what do people actually need to know to, with tech, make good buying decisions, or more broadly, just to integrate whatever this thing is into their company. And then we design our research to look at that. But what we internally say is that if this was something that showed up, and no disrespect to anybody who writes for this publication, but if this showed up in Forbes, we're behind the times. Like if what we said as a researcher could have showed up there, then we're behind the times. And so we try very hard to be on the cutting edge of what people really care about, which requires an immense amount of reading and talking to people and then designing the study.
Well, what's a publication that you would want it to show up in that you are with the times?
Well, HBR, I think,
Okay.
MIT Sloan.
Well, I think she's saying that she wants to be there before it is published in HBR, right?
Yeah.
She wants to be like, aha, we told you 3 months ago.
But then if our stuff shows up in either of those places, which it has, actually, we published in both those places in 2023, I'm happy with that. But if it's something that would kind of be in the, common press, not so much. It's not our place.
So what's something you can share with us? Like what's the voice of the crowd saying around AI? Where's it heading?
Voice of the crowd is that vendors really care a lot and practitioners don't.
Oh, wow.
To say it succinctly.
Really?
Okay. Say more about that.
Yeah.
So it's not that and that's a little bit of an oversimplification, of course, but the thing is that vendors have not yet fully made the case for how this will actually solve the problems that HR and the business care the most about. So they've said, oh, well, you can summarize. Okay, well, what can I summarize, for instance? I saw a technology this fall that is allowing you to summarize. So it's for performance reviews. And basically, in some of these systems, you can mark what your performance feedback was, and then it will put all of that in one place. And then the technology, the Gen AI, will summarize what was written across all these different performance reviews. And a lot of people, particularly on the tech side, were like, this is the best thing. Nobody likes to do performance reviews. And no comment.
Which is
there.
true.
It's fair. It's fair.
On the HR side, and for me as a researcher, there's the side that's like, yeah, that's true. But on the other hand, are we going to be introducing more bias in these summaries? Because we know that there's all sorts of bias within the models. There's
clipping out important information when you aggregate,
right?
Yeah.
Right, because all it's doing is kind of getting at the very, average part, but it may not say, hey, this one thing that you did that this one person made comment on, that was actually next level. That's you demonstrating the next capability. There's a fascinating study that's out there that was done on using, maybe it wasn't a study, I think actually it was just an article, but it was on the impact of using a bot versus a person for therapy sessions, right? And when they found that the person and the bot said the exact same thing, if someone knew it was a bot, they discounted it, found it less valuable than if it was a person who, again, said the exact same thing. And when they dug into it and they asked why that was the case, it was because what mattered was the time that somebody put in to giving you the feedback, to hearing your story, to listening. Now, translate that to performance reviews. If I think that a bot wrote my review, that has no value. Like, you take the criticism that people have of performance reviews today, it gets even worse, right? But part of what can make a review valuable is I know that my manager put some time, effort, thought into what they put together, and this really is what they think, and they're trying to help me be better. So if we have a bot write that, maybe not, right? So it goes on and on and on. So the question is how does the AI solve the real problem that exists, or is it creating other problems that maybe we don't have right now?
That's a super interesting point, because I mentioned this a few weeks ago. This idea that I get very little satisfaction of using Gen AI to produce a doc of some sort. You produce some text, and it kind of robs me of that satisfaction in creating it. Now you're looking at it through the lens of someone else, like, well, Stacia wrote my performance review, and it sounds very nice. It's the words are grammatically correct, but there's no thought behind it. And the more, I think it's going to become more and more prevalent. Of course, people are going to use this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm seeing it now everywhere. Like, the AIs have a very distinct format that they use, and like cadence to how they talk. And when I see it now, I even discount what's being written anywhere I see it. Like, I see people that I know are generating posts like on LinkedIn that I know are AI generated. I'm like, yep, not reading that. Like, it's just because like you didn't put any thought into it. So I think there's something there.
Yeah. So I think, it's not that HR is rejecting it by any means. I mean, everyone's interested. Lots of people have a high level of interest, but I don't know that HR is convinced yet of that its risks are outweighed by the benefits.
Yeah. I think that Gen AI has to do something for you. And granted, writing a performance review is doing something for you. But say like cascading goals from manager to manager, or aggregating planning goals across different groups, some sort of task that takes weeks and weeks and weeks. Can we truncate that down to something, within a week or so? It has to do something.
Yeah.
Can I build on that, Scott?
I would welcome it, yeah.
Because I think like a lot of people use the analogy of like with AI, it was like when the internet was first created. And do you guys remember like when the internet was first created, everybody wanted to like create their own web page, like on like GeoCities, and there was no purpose to the web page.
Using that Netscape navigator, yeah.
And so it was like completely useless information, but they were just like, yeah, I created a web page, and isn't that brilliant? And it's like, I feel like AI is in the same place right now. It's like, yeah, I used it and it didn't do anything. It's like, isn't that brilliant? I don't know.
Yeah. But I think similarly, it will transform what we do. We just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. Yep. Got to find ways to monetize, use for productivity gains, for real generation, but that doesn't rob us of the, core essence of what it means to be creative, like all of that stuff.
Yeah, real efficiency, real performance, real productivity.
Yeah. Well, what are you seeing in the people analytics space in particular, Stacia? I mean, I know you're heavy in that area.
Yeah, so there's a few things. We're actually just about to kick off our next people analytics tech studies. But there's a few things in general that.
Well, can I ask about that actually?
Yeah.
Like, do you dread that moment? Is like, oh my gosh, more work is coming, or is that exciting? What is that experience like?
Well, I generally like our people analytics tech vendors, and so it gives me a chance to see people I like. So from like that perspective, I like it. It is an immense amount of work. Because Scott, for your and the listeners' knowledge and background, we run usually 2 surveys of vendors, which are very long. We will do a 60-minute briefing with most vendors who participate in the study on top of that. And then we've got all the data analysis and everything, plus a customer survey. So it is a huge amount of work every year.
You get like a 360 of the customer life cycle here, it sounds like.
Yeah. And so we do it every year. This year, we're actually going to make a little bit of a change where we're going to move to a cadence of a market study, meaning what's happening more broadly in the market every year, and then a kind of features and functionality survey every other year, because things just don't change quite that fast. They changed a lot during the pandemic, and if we have another kind of event like that, we would go back to it. But right now things are starting to even out a little bit, so we're gonna shift that anyway. But at the end of it, we're able to say things like how fast the market grew in the previous year, what customers' expectations are, how companies have changed their product roadmap, et cetera, that kind of stuff. So it's pretty interesting. But back to your point, or to your question, Cole, some of the things that I think are the most interesting are some of the things we've been saying are coming, but we're actually starting to see them in product. So we have been saying for a long time that we need to focus on different personas, because when we started the study in 2019, everyone was just focused on the people analytics persona, and it was like maybe some on HR, an HR BP. And now we're finally starting to see clear articulation of personas across different, business leaders and managers and HR and even different people in HR, as well as people analytics. And that I think is essential for getting data-driven approaches adopted across the organization. And that is a really good and meaningful change.
Well, what kind of personas or archetypes are you finding?
Well, just like I said, so folks are focusing a lot more on senior leaders and HR BPs as true personas, as opposed to like, we'll just give them a high-level summary and call it good, which is what they were basically doing, which is the equivalent of like, we're just going to throw some data over the wall and say that, check the box, which we all know doesn't really work. So that's one. The other one is managers themselves. So our research shows that the more information that you're able to distribute out to managers, the higher their perceived effectiveness. And so we're seeing a lot more focus on helping managers get the information they need to make better decisions. So that's one big change. Second one that we've seen is, and continues to be, is that the employee experience market tends to be the biggest and strongest of kind of all the different categories we cover within people analytics. And I know that another analyst recently said we're going to come into an EX winter, which I think is not true. So our data would indicate that is actually not at all going to happen. But, because as you think about, what's happening, even if organization is laying off people or they're slowing hiring due to economic uncertainty, they still need to retain the people who are there, and those people are going to be doing a lot more work than they were before they laid off their colleagues. So it doesn't make sense that folks would back off of employee experience. In fact, we tend to see a rise in focus on EX during difficult economic times, with particularly things that are that don't require a cash investment. So things like internal mobility, where you could, you've already got that sitting in your organization, or using existing learning opportunities more effectively. We see that. So we do see an investment in EX during downtime. So and I expect to see that to continue. That comes out of our data.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. Like, so we went through a round of layoffs early this year across, different industries. Now people are doing 2 or 3 different jobs. It used to be one person, and they get to meet expectations at the end of the year. It's like, oh, dang.
That's why
it feels like a slap in the face. Yeah. So, I mean, and we're going to see, what happened. I think 2024 is going to be a very challenging year. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but I think it's going to be pretty rough. And we're working on we're doing a trends session next week. So I've been working on that and thinking a lot about next year. So
rough how?
Yeah. Why would it be harder than this year was?
Well, the majority of economists think that a now hopefully mild recession will happen in Q1 and Q2. Whereas before it was much more evenly split. It was like 50-50. We're now looking at around 80% of economists think that we're finally going to go through that. So who knows, right? But
you heard it here first, everybody.
But what we do know is that, executives are careful about risk. So whether it happens or not, the fact that that's the signal out there means that, CFOs are, in all the vendors and all the practitioner companies we talk to, everyone is turning things tight right now. So that's going to have all sorts of downstream effects, certainly within, in terms of the people in the organization, but also HR significantly, right? And not like HR wasn't already burned out enough as it was before this. So that's one thing. Second thing is, we're continuing to see significant geopolitical conflict, and that has implications on organizations. It was interesting for for this research session we're doing next week, I went looking like for data on the impact of war on businesses, and it's like no one is doing this research. They'll talk about like, oh well, the U.S. government has spent this much on whatever, or this is how it has impacted like a general area like the EU. But no one is like, hey, like when, and I know we're not being political, so I'm just going to say this as a thing. When one country attacks another country and you have workers in both of those countries,
what do you do?
As an HR leader, what do you do? And what is the impact on your organization's productivity?
Yeah.
No one's doing that research.
Do you work for Raytheon? I guess the first question.
Oh my gosh.
No. I mean, think about, with Ukraine and Russia, how much tech stuff is out of Ukraine and Russia? I mean, here in Silicon Valley, that was the whole thing is we got all these, we had Ukrainian employees or workers in Russia. Or I mean,
or
Ukrainian
Israel.
Workers, or Israel.
Yeah.
Right. So like, what do you do? And that impacts HR. No matter what your perspective is, that impacts HR. So that's another thing. One of the others is power struggle, right? We're seeing a massive power struggle between senior executives and the rest of the organization. So return to office, is one potential thing, but also labor, right? We have not seen such support of labor unions since the 1960s. And we are not just seeing it in with the car manufacturers where they just won all sorts of big concessions, but we're seeing it in Starbucks and Microsoft and all of these companies that you would traditionally not think of having unions, and they are, which there's plenty more to say about that. But the point is HR is going to have to deal with that as well. So there's a few other things too that we're going to talk about in the webinar, but at the high level, I think that's going to make this year more difficult for folks. And then you layer on what will undoubtedly be a contentious election this fall in the United States. And that's going to raise tensions too.
Well, you mentioned a webinar.
So again, not to be a Debbie Downer.
No. This is actually really important stuff. You mentioned a webinar though. Do you have like a link to it that we could put in the show notes that people could go do some more research if they wanted to?
Yeah, so this is an internal webinar for our members only. So folks could join the membership to do that. But we will be doing a public version of it in January, which I can share with you.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that then. Well, I did have one question that I think that you were kind of uniquely positioned to answer, and you may not even have an answer to it, but you research a lot in like what the future of HR technology looks like. Is there a future HR technology that you don't see that exists that you think would be truly transformative and somebody needs to go build it? Like, what would that be?
So we're talking a lot about broadly AI and its impact on, augmentation of workers and automation. We're also seeing a lot of talk about skills. What are people's skills and, what skills do they use in a given job? I don't see anything that is bringing that together, right? So like if I have X skills and such technology can either augment what I'm doing or automate, take away some of that, what is then the work how does the work that I do look different? And what is the work that should come on my plate that has to replace the work that just came off my plate? How do I think about work design, skill capability, and what the future organization should look like given those things? And
so it's like a skills operation manager or operations management tool or something.
But it's not just skills because you also have to take into account the job and the context in which someone is working and the types of relationships that they have. So I would be hesitant to say it's just skills because I'm sure plenty of people who listen to this will try to say no, we do that, and I'm saying it's not just that. But if you do that, reach out to us because we're doing a skills tech study right now. So
I'll go one step ahead of you. The automation of job analysis to understand the knowledge, skills, abilities, and how they fit into the organizational structure such that you can hire the right people, reward them in the right way, and keep them engaged, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
saw
in an automated fashion because everything changes so quickly.
Yeah, so I actually saw a technology yesterday that does a lot of that, Scott. But what
Really?
it doesn't, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't bring in the knowledge of what can be augmented or automated into that analysis, which I think is part of the missing link. But to your point, Scott, that's the only tech I've seen, and I see a lot of tech, and that's the only one I've seen that does that.
Well, this is like, I mean, it's a broader discussion around what is AI, et cetera, and the limitations of it. It's only as good as its training data. And this is where like the humans can have real-time information and anecdotes and, spot differences that AI can't.
Yeah, but to your point, it's more powerful if it's automated, right? If it's
absolutely.
not just, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw Richard Landers gave a PsyOp LEC talk on that topic. I got to watch the video of it yesterday. It was really good, and I can put a link to that. I think it's on YouTube. But do you want to join us in the confusion matrix, Stacia?
Sure, let's do it.
The confusion matrix. Are you ready to be confused?
Absolutely.
Let's do a little research roulette. How about that? Okay, Stacia, your job is simple. We got 3 articles. One of them is real. Your job is to identify the real article, okay?
Okay.
And if you win, Cole is going to send you a personalized email with a social media tile that you can share on LinkedIn or any other social media of your
Lucky
choice.
you.
Or frame it. What have you?
Whatever makes
Whatever
my,
you like.
makes my day.
And if you lose, like the kids will probably get like a 13-hand pony as opposed to a 14. Something like that. Okay. These are all animal based. Number 1, the title of this article is Even Chickens Prefer Beautiful People. This is from the Journal of Avian Behavioral Studies from Stockholm University. Article number 2, the aesthetics of taste. Do goldfish appreciate classical music? International Journal of Aquatic Animals from Tufts University. Or 3, Understanding Art Through the Eyes of a Pigeon, Journal of Art Appreciation from New York University. So you got Chickens Preferring Beautiful People, The Aesthetics of Taste, Do Goldfish Appreciate Classical Music, and Understanding Art Through the Eyes of a Pigeon.
All right. So here's my thinking. Am I supposed to explain my thinking? Can I do that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So on pigeons,
I love
there's
the
all
pigeon.
sorts of, there's
it.
all sorts of research, right, about how people who have grown up perceiving themselves or being perceived as more attractive tend to have more confidence and kind of exude other things that are not directly related to beauty. So there's possibility that we got a little correlation going on there between beauty and attractiveness and energy that the pigeons could like. So I'm going to go with that's a solid maybe true.
Okay.
On the next one, which was the goldfish, right? There's a resurgence in research on goldfish, guys. You probably haven't seen it, but
you are so cutting edge. I mean, I love this.
Better not be
this is what you get it.
This is what you get when someone who wanders around the internet.
We do goldfish.
All right, so goldfish, they've been able to show that they do not have short memories. There was an article recently on how a goldfish, they put it in a tank and it was on wheels, and then they could put something that they thought the goldfish would want and something it wouldn't, and it would actually, by pushing against the glass, would push the tank to the right place. So
oh my god! So you can navigate a tank around like a laboratory or something like that?
Yeah, totally. I'm going to have to find this article for you guys to put it in the notes afterwards. So I'm going to say goldfish are real, which leaves us with the last one of art, pigeon, or art and what?
Even chickens prefer beautiful people.
No, that was number 1. I was pro chickens.
You're pro chickens. The last one is understanding art through the eyes of a pigeon.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that's false. Like, I don't know.
So
I can't find some justification. Oh, 2 are false.
2 are false.
All right, so definitely pigeons.
It's like 2 lies and a truth.
All right, I believe in the goldfish. So let's get rid of my hypothesis on the chickens. And
you believe in the goldfish.
Yep. What's the answer?
Well, Cole?
I like the pigeons one.
You like the pigeons one.
You like pigeons?
Yeah.
You,
It
you
just
probably
seems
have some
so
back
weird and
information.
implausible that it's got to be plausible.
Okay, y'all ready?
Yep.
Here we go. It's actually the chickens. Chickens prefer beautiful people.
Those darn chickens with their
So-
attractiveness bias.
I read this earlier this week, but apparently they train chickens to respond to a average-looking woman's face, and then did some sort of experimental design to, they prefer the more attractive people, and they say it questions the evolution of perception of beauty, this sort of thing.
Okay. All right. Well, we were both wrong, Cole.
So everyone feels shame. Everyone feels shame.
Do
I
the
don't guess.
chickens
I feel like I had a
prettier
good
eggs?
hypothesis there.
Do they? Yeah, the little Easter eggs, a little colorful.
Yeah.
They got the spotted nose like the horse.
All right, well, let's do some nerdery. How about that?
Let's do some nerdery.
The nerdery.
This article provides some guidance on how to enhance your performance. So they offer 3 general suggestions. So one is look at it frequently. So essentially look at your calendar and find pinch points in the future. Get a sense of what's coming down the pipe, this sort of thing. Clarify constantly. So look at your email and task and decide if things should be deleted or, archived, or perhaps a short response should be made. And also be content and just understand that you will never finish everything on your plate, and there's always going to be something tomorrow. So this is really designed to get more done with less stress, with an emphasis on not seeking perfection, but just keep on moving.
I remember actually learning about this from my first boss, and I guess it was my second boss, my second job. And they talked about one of the things, especially they were talking about email, and this article talks about the email aspect of it, is you're just going to have to get comfortable that you're never done with email.
Yeah.
Like, it's always going to keep coming. There's always going to be more. You may get that inbox down to 0, which, more power to you if you're ever able to do that. I'm not. But there's also not power in having 400,000 unread emails either. But like, it's always going to keep coming, and that could be the same. It could be true for Slack or text messages or whatever kind of medium of communication you use.
The multiple channels is a real pain. Cole can attest that I'm very comfortable with not responding to personal email anyway. For work, I strive for no scroll inbox. So, have so few emails that you don't have to scroll up and down. That's a lofty goal, but not often achieved.
What's your email hack, Stacia? Or do you have one? Or are you 400,000 unread emails? Are you that kind of person?
I got 21,000 unread emails.
So, oh my Lord.
But the thing, so here's the thing. Here's a book for you guys. 4,000 Weeks. And it's 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. And basically what the whole thesis of that book is that we have been told that we need to be so productive and do all these things. And we put all this false stress on ourselves. And like, really? Does it matter? Nah. So if you look at the book, at the article that you guys shared, the 2 things I would agree with is like, figure out your big picture. Like, what is it you're actually trying to do? Like, the 1 or 2 things that you're trying to do. And then second, realize that you're never going to be done. And just be somewhat okay with that. To answer your question directly, Cole, I do have email hacks. Things go into certain folders. If it's really not that necessary, that's part of the reason that I've got 20,000. It's not that I've got 20,000 in my main section. It's that I've got 20,000 filed away in some folder, and whether or not I need to see it, But so that's part of it. I also have an assistant who helps me go through my email and make sure I respond to things. Things like, "Hey, Stacia, what you want to talk about on the podcast this week?" So it can be more or less effective. And so I think the thing is figure out how you can have the things that are truly the highest priority and aligned to your biggest priorities, and make sure you get there. And then everything else is going to be noise, and you just have to be okay with that.
vibes of what's the quadrant system? Important and urgent, and you try and bucket everything in your life, or all the tasks anyway, into one of these quadrants, from do it now to delegate, etc.
Yeah, the Stephen Covey, urgent versus important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Sounds
for sure.
smart to me.
Do the multiple folders work for you? Like, I mean, I have one folder, essentially archive. Like, everything goes in there.
No. So, like, for instance, because I have a podcast, that was actually part of the problem, Cole. I kept going into my podcast. Yeah, my podcast folder. So anything that comes in this podcast goes there. And so I don't always look at it because of when we record. Anyway, our podcast is called Workplace Stories by RedThread Research. But so what happens though is when I'm ready to like think about a topic, then I go there. I'm like, okay, I am ready from a time blocking, because I have a crazy time blocker, which is why Calendly actually doesn't work very well for me, because there's literally no space on my calendar. So because I'm always making a trade-off between, am I going to talk to this person? Am I going to allow this meeting on my calendar versus the work time that I've blocked to get done? I find that if you have your calendar wide open, you just think it's wide open and you let other people take priority. I own my calendar and I give time away, and I think about it that way. Anyway, not to get on that particular soapbox.
No, let's get on the soapbox. That's the whole point of why we do these nerdery things.
Yeah, no, I have very strong opinions on time usage.
It sounds like you've been burned. You've been burned.
No. Like I have some thoughts about Calendly too, just to put it out there. Yeah. When I've set out links to people to like book time with me, what will happen is like literally every minute of every day will be booked up with people from Calendly. I'm like,
oh, I got you.
Geez, like, can you guys give me a break? And so then you start like trying to block out time, but it can just take over your life. And so I totally jive with what you're saying, Stacia, about you got to own your calendar, your life, because otherwise people will like take over for you.
Take back your day.
Yeah, you have to own your day. I make with every meeting I accept, including this one, Cole, I make a decision like, is this the thing I would rather be doing than writing research, than seeing my kids? Like, those are the two things that I trade off against all the time. And usually I don't take any calls on Fridays. Like, it's a hard rule, but special exception for Cole. But
Aw, that's really sweet. But now I'm wondering, are you regretting it?
No, I listened to enough podcasts to know it'd be fun.
Let's do this next nerdy one. Actually, I came across this article a while back, Stacia, but I saved it for you because I thought it would be a really interesting one about startup founder personalities. So this is from Nature, and this is I think it's Nature, or maybe Scientific Reports. It's some really big journal.
It was Nature.
It is Nature, yeah. And what these researchers, I don't know where they came across this data set, but they got a data set of 21,000 startups and their founders' big 5 personality traits. And that what they found is there's actually 6 different profiles or types of what makes a good startup founder. But in general, that they value variety, novelty, and starting new things, obviously, with like openness to adventure, being the center of attention, and they have lower levels of modesty, and being exuberant, so higher activity levels. And so I thought this was fascinating because one of my theories that I've had on this, and I've actually just coincidentally had quite a few folks reach out to me over the last few weeks about like, how can you assess startup founder personality and this type of thing? And I always say, look at the tails, right? Most of the time with personality, you're wanting somebody who's kind of well-adjusted, just maybe high, maybe low, depending on what kind of factor you're looking for. But with startups, you need, some 4 Sigma, some 6 Sigma individuals on some of these kind of characteristics. And I'm curious what your experience has been like, because I'm sure you talk to a lot of these folks, Stacia.
Yeah, for sure. So it's actually, the data set's super interesting, Cole. I read the whole thing. And it's a combination of Crunchbase and then cross-reference to their Twitter commentary. So it's their personalities as represented on Twitter. But that's how they made the connection.
Yeah.
So it's really, just methodologically, like, good job thinking of that one.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I think, I started a company and, I would say from personal experience reading that, I was like, yeah, that's probably fair. Like I get bored easily and want to do something else. And there's always something new to do with your own company. Because there's always something to be done because there's never enough people and resources and money. But in terms of, seeing a lot of the startups that I see come through, I think that it holds true because effectively you have to have an idea and an appetite for adventure to go make that idea be a thing. And you also have to have a somewhat unreasonable level of risk tolerance because, more than 50% of startups fail. I think in that same article, it said that only 30% make it past 7 years. So you have to be willing to bet on yourself that you're going to beat the odds. And that takes a certain, again, I think it was expressed as, desire for attention or whatever it was, but you just have to think you're good enough to make it. And I think that's true. It really resonated with me in terms of what they found.
What do you think about this one, Scott?
Well, first it raised questions around toxoplasmosis, which we know is associated with entrepreneurial spirit.
As one does.
As one does. We can cover that later. But what I found most interesting, and this resonates with me, is that the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones with a diverse team around them. So yes, you can be optimistic, you can be impulsive, you can have great ideas, but you need the balance. You need either you're a very strong, optimistic and adventurous sort of person, and you need a technical balance, or you're very heavy in the technical and you need like the salesperson with you. Have you ever watched the show? I think it's called The Food That Built America. It's on the History Channel, but all these companies, they're almost always based on 2 or more people getting together. It's never just like one lone person. And one person is always like the salesperson, like, let's take this idea and let's run, let's sell it. It's like the other person's like, whoa, our quality is not there yet. On the other hand, you got the balance. Once again, the person's like, well, we're going to R&D this to the nth degree. And the other person's like, no, we got to make some money now. So it's always a balance.
You got to have a glue guy. Yeah. You got to have somebody that sticks it together.
There's lots of parallels for this podcast.
Oh, wow. Anyway.
But it's really about the toxoplasmosis. That's what I know.
Yeah. Betting on yourself, risk-taking behaviors, sniffing cat urine, all of the good stuff.
Eating
all
raw
the things.
meat, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Scott, do you want to cover the last one?
Last one, absolutely. So, how would you describe your sleep quality, Stacia? Oh, very poorly. She went on mute.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, we're leaving that in too.
Yeah, we'll leave. But for everyone that isn't watching, Stacia just immediately hit mute as soon as I started talking here. But we'll let it slide. We see how it is, Stacia.
I mean, that's because I'm working from home and somebody walked across the back and I didn't want you to happen.
Oh, it's always about distraction.
It's beautiful timing.
But apparently living on the wrong side of a time zone can impact how much sleep you actually get. So people in the western part of the time zone, the sun goes down later than on the eastern side. In fact, it's about an hour difference. So like the sun were to go down on the eastern side about 7:30, western side about 8:30. And this leads to when it goes dark, your brain releases melatonin, and people on the east side of the time zone get about 19 more minutes of sleep per night. So what does this mean? So people on the western side, they're less likely to get 6 hours sleep, less likely to get 8 hours total sleep, more likely to be obese, more likely to be overweight, more likely to have a heart attack, and they're less productive overall. So it's pretty crazy.
Do you think this one's real? So
oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Well, so here is my thought. There's a lot of other research that goes into saying that the impact of lights have completely disrupted our like circadian rhythm to nature. And so basically, it might get darker, but we have so many lights, particularly in our homes, that we don't really notice. So I was reading it. I was like, yeah, I can see this, but I'm not sure. I think this is what's really causing it.
Yeah, I mean, like if you like pluck people out like the 1700s, where everyone's like candlelight, but I think that
Right.
still exists, right? Like it's.
I don't know. So I'm from Arizona originally, and we have no time. We have no time zone change, which was like blew my mind. Literally, I've told this story before, but when I went to college as a freshman, and they're like, "Oh, the time's going to change tonight. It's going to drop back," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, is this like some freshman prank? No, I'd never. You can tell where I started. I'd never been out of Arizona during the time change, and I didn't know what the heck they were talking about. So I have kind of a funny relationship with time anyway. But I mean, maybe this is true, but it could also be something else, right? And this is why I'm a researcher, because I'm always like asking questions like, is that really right? But
well, you could also divide the country in north and south as well. Like the sun goes down much earlier in the north, so if you combine these two things, it makes perfect sense. The Earth is rotating, and you have the time zone. Everyone's in that same time zone. On the eastern side, the sun's is naturally gonna get darker before.
Yeah, the effect of the curvature of the Earth is real. Like in the northern hemisphere versus southern, or whatever. I'm probably not saying that right, but I actually watched a video this week about the international dateline. Apparently, that thing zigzags like crazy, and there's some areas that are like 6 hour, like little island chains out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that are like what would be in a normal time zone, like 6 hours away, but they're in yesterday because of the international dateline. It really screws up their ability to work in other places because of such vast, zigzags of the international dateline. So I think that this is absolutely true. Maybe it's not within the hour, but if you went like a 2 hours or 3 hours difference from everybody else, that's got to be a huge difference.
I mean, the data is really compelling to me. Go on.
Wouldn't you expect, Scott, to your point, that you would see the same thing the farther north you get in the country?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying that they didn't cut it that way.
Yeah. Okay. I bet you would, though.
I don't know.
One of my favorite natural experiment studies is on the date change day, the day after, and they found more cyberloafing on that day, and more car accidents, more of this sort of thing, because people lose an hour of sleep. Hell, like I think we talk so much in organizations about like wellness and like go to the meditation tent and all this sort of shit, but one thing that would be like no cost to the organization would be to, hey, get better sleep, everybody. Rest up. See you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, no kidding. I remember I lived in Chicago for a little while, and I never realized, because I'd always lived in the kind of the southern part of the United States. And in the month of January, the days were so much shorter. I would leave for work and the sun would still not be up yet. And when I would left work at the end of the day, the sun had already gone down. So I didn't see the sun for like a month.
Welcome to Seattle.
That was extremely depressing. And so I was like, I can't handle this. And so I always tell people, Chicago's like a really cool city. I enjoyed living there, but I had to move back to Texas because I couldn't handle just the month of January. It was just so brutal. And not to mention it was cold and windy. But yeah, it was rough.
The summertime, you get the exact opposite, where the sun will come up at like 4:30 in the morning and go down about 9:30.
Yeah, summer's insane. Awesome up there. It was so awesome. But anyway, well, I think we've hit that point in the conversation. So Stacia, it was amazing having you join us today, and I've been looking forward to this for a while. And I appreciate you taking time on your Friday, because since apparently that's like a sacred day. So thank you for joining this with us. But before I give you the final word, Scott, any parting words for Stacia?
Stacia, pleasure to meet you. Hope to see you at PsyOp next year.
Yeah, it was great to meet you too, Scott. And thank you, Cole. I've been looking forward to it as well.
Cool. Well, you've been listening to Directionally Correct, People Analytics Podcast with Cole and Scott and Stacia Garr. Thanks, Stacia.
Thank you.
All opinions are our own and do not reflect those of any other organization. You've been listening to Directionally Correct, a People Analytics Podcast with Cole and Scott.